Good morning, everyone. My name is Patty Kim, State Senator for Senate District 15 or Dauphin County. We are very excited to be hosting this seminar on pardons. This has been an issue that is pretty important to my office. We get weekly calls of requests to help out with pardons. I know that Representative Madsen gets these requests as well. And so I think it's really important that we are experts. And today we're going to be learning from an expert. We've been working with Toby Oxholm, Executive Director for the Pennsylvania Pardon Project. I just know Toby as Toby. He is so easy to work with. He is full of information and he's very modest. So he wouldn't want me to tell you guys that he graduated from Harvard Law School, cum laude. Nope, he wouldn't want me to tell you that. He's probably be very embarrassed. He worked at different universities at the senior level and then becoming president at one university. And then I love this. He tried to retire. He became a volunteer for the Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equity. And then he became the executive director. Like, who does that? Toby does. And so he is an expert in this field. He is also trying to lead the way to have pardon projects or, a one-stop shop for pardons all over the state. He's done a lot in a couple of counties and Dauphin County as well. But he is our leading expert on this issue. So Toby, I'm going to send it over to you. Thank you for taking good care of us. And we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Senator. What I'd like to do is go through, we have a lot to cover. And I'm going to be covering as much as I can, but the senator, she always gives you too much to do in too little time because she has very high expectations. But we're going to start off with keywords and concepts because I know this is something that has been of real interest to the staff because these are all lawyer words and what are we talking about? And if you don't know what you're talking about, it's really hard to help a constituent. I have circulated a glossary of terms. I'm not going to go through them all, but you have a list now of all the weird words that judges and lawyers and, clerks of court put into dockets. But here are the big ones, okay? We have to understand what we're talking about because we're talking about different things. Exoneration is when somebody proves in court that they weren't guilty. Expungement is when a judge erases a criminal record, and only judges can do this. Nobody else in the whole state can erase a criminal record. Clean slate is not erasing anything. Clean slate is sealing something. And what that does is it keeps the record exactly as it is without touching it, but it puts something over top of it. So most people, most of the time, can't see it, but it's there. So if you're at all worried about having an arrest or a conviction from when you were 18 show up when you're trying to apply for a job when you're 39 and you're trying to get a job in healthcare, they are seeing that. If you are required to fill out an FBI background search, you do the FBI clearance form, they see it all. The FBI is not clean slating things. They haven't agreed yet not to share that information. So if you're in childcare, healthcare, elder care, anything having to do with kids, anything having to do with security, a lot of government contracts, there are lots of people for whom clean slate does not apply at all. And that's not even going into what the crimes are that are covered or not. So clean slate ain't cleaning it. It's just masking it. It's sealing it. That's all in the judicial branch. That's what judges do. You have to go to court for that. On the executive branch, the governor has the powers of clemency. Pennsylvania was the first state in the Union to have a constitution from 1776. And actually, the federal constitution is modeled on ours. That gave to our governor, as virtually every constitution in every state gave to their governors, the power to grant clemency. Clemency is a big word that covers several things, but the biggest ones we want to talk about are commutation and pardon. A commutation is a shortening of a sentence. It is not letting people out. It is not cleaning up their record. If you're in prison, it might get you out of prison. If you're on probation and parole, it may shorten it or end the probation and parole. Those are acts of kindness. They're acts of grace. So is a pardon. A pardon is an executive forgiveness. It doesn't say you didn't do the crime. No, you still did the crime. But the government, on behalf of the people, say, okay, you did your time, you paid your fine, you've been a good boy or girl out there for X numbers of years, you've proven you're trying to be a good citizen, you've proven that your criminal history record is holding you back, and we're going to forgive you. And what a pardon is in Pennsylvania, and not all states have the same definition, in Pennsylvania, in the words of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court from the 1800s, it blots out any evidence of the bad thing. So when a court blots it out, that's the end of the matter. The governor signing the pardon warrant does not blot it out. You still have to go to court, except in Pennsylvania, a year and a half ago in Clean Slate 3.0, thanks to several senators, we were able to get in a provision that said if the governor gives an unconditional pardon, it'll automatically be expunged by the court. The lieutenant governor's office notifies the administrative office of Pennsylvania courts, and then it's up to the courts to spread the word to everybody out there, the cops, the DAs, the state agencies, the state police, everybody, clean this up, blot it out. So those are the different words we're talking. We're only talking about pardons. And in Pennsylvania, pardons are only for people who have completed their sentences. Okay? Commutations lets them out. Pardons are for people who've been out a long time, maybe never went away. They were on probation for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years back when they were 19, and they're now 30 years old. So we're talking about erasing those different events that are holding people back for people who have been out in our community already for a long time. Okay? So as we go into this, a governor can only pardon crimes that were committed in Pennsylvania. You can't pardon you for a federal crime. You can't pardon you for an Ohio crime or New Jersey. We can give them referrals to those administrative offices, but we can't help them. We're only dealing with convictions for felonies and misdemeanors. There's the levels of convictions are summary offenses, misdemeanors, felonies. Okay, and the summary offenses can be expunged by a judge without getting a pardon. It's only felonies and misdemeanors. And we're not talking about arrests or ARD, which is accelerated rehabilitative disposition, or anything like that. And there's a whole list of words on the glossary I sent around of things that are not convictions. Convictions are guilty, pled guilty, or nolo contendere, which is a nice phrase that means he didn't even try to contend. He didn't admit it, but he says, I'm not going to try to contend the charges. These are only for people who completed their sentences. You're not contesting your guilt. You don't have to say you were guilty if you weren't, because you have to be honest. But this is not the place to contest guilt. And this is full forgiveness, not clean slate. All right, so those are the words we're going into. Now we want to read that rap sheet. This is the rap sheet. This is what's available when you go online to find something. And it goes on for page after page after page after page after page after page. All right, so this is pretty typical, especially in a place like Philadelphia where people tend to get arrested a lot. It'll have a date of birth at the top. It'll talk a little bit about the person's characteristics. And over here in the corner, it'll have the person's name and their aliases. All right, an alias is other name by which they're known. My real name is Carl Oxholm III. My alias is Toby Oxholm. It's also Toby Oxham because it's been mistyped up a number of times. So you want to make sure you get all the aliases so when you apply for a pardon, the court looks for it. It has something called an OTN over here, which is an offense tracking number. This is not the number you get when you hold up the card in front of your face and get your photo taken when you're booked. This is how the court tracks you through the system, okay? It has the arrest date over here. Whoops, sorry, highlighting too much over here. It has the disposition date, which is whenever the judge got done with it. It has the court over here and the docket number over there. The Board of Pardons, which I will be talking about, uses the OTN over here. So that's a rap sheet. But now look at this particular person. If you look at what they did, look here in the center. These are the crimes, right? And I can't highlight just that column, but here, manufacturing, deliver, possession, possession of firearm. Here is receiving stolen property, receiving criminal conspiracy, firearms, aggravated assault, criminal conspiracy, engaging, firearms, simple assault. All right, you're an HR person. Exactly how long are you going to spend looking at this person when you've seen this rap sheet? Yeah, the answer was dead silence. Nobody's going to look at that stuff, right? But that's only what they were charged with. On this side is what happened in court, the disposition. And look at these things. Charge changed. That means the DA decided not to go forward with it. It's just something else. Nol pros. Those are the government decided not to prosecute somebody. Disposed at lower court. It means, okay, this was taken care of at a lower level. Okay. Charge changed, nol pros, disposed at lower level, non pros. All right, there's a guilty plea. And if you go through this entire rap sheet, you're going to find that here's one that was withdrawn right here, withdrawn, held for court. That means in our system of justice, you can go to a judge at one level to find out if there's probable cause to have a trial. And here in Philadelphia, they go to municipal court. It's district court around the state. And this one, the district justice said, okay, there's enough evidence to go forward. This is not a conviction. Held for court. Dismissed, LOE. Dismissed. Lack of evidence. Held for court. Withdrawn. Held for court. So you have a 4-page rap sheet here, ladies and gentlemen, where the only thing was one crime when he had pled guilty. Okay? And this thing occurred, let me see if I can find it, on February 14th, 2007. Okay? Here's where the birth date is. October of 88. Okay? This guy was 19. And this is his rap sheet today. And so if he's, however many years it is, 37, he has one conviction. He pled guilty for possession, probably weed, right? And he's never going to work again. That is what this conviction is all about. That is a rap sheet. So if we're really talking about how to read a rap sheet, you have to be aware that all of this stuff, you can find this by Googling convictions in Pennsylvania. It'll take you 2 clicks to get here. ujsportal.pacourts.us/case search. But you come down here and it says search by. And if you do the search engine, it says, okay, I want to do it by participant name. Okay, what else do you need to put in? Last name, first name. Okay, I'm going to put in somebody who has allowed me to do this, which is the filmmaker Suja Moore. You type in the last name, first name, and down here in the docket type, you do a down memo and you hit criminal. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll put in a first name and a last name. Now this name is, fairly unique. You may want to put in the date of birth because if the name is John Smith or something, they're going to be a couple. But on this one, there's not probably going to be too many Suja Moores out there. So you click this, I didn't even finish my sentence, right? And up comes their criminal record. There are 2 things over here on the right. One is a paper with a D. One is the Parthenon building. If you hit the Parthenon building, you end up with what's called the court summary. And what this is, it's the electronic version of their rap sheet. Okay, here's what he got. Dismissed, held for court, all that kind of stuff. He was guilty, he was convicted. And there's his aliases over here. Suja Moore, and one misspelling, Shuya Moore. Okay, so this is actually what is an actual rap sheet for somebody, and you can see how it calls up. But more importantly, I wanted you to see how easy it is to get the information about anyone who you are trying to help. This is really pretty tragic. And so that's the end of this first part about terms and where you go for records. All right. The second thing we're going to talk about is how do they hurt and who do they hurt? And, How do you get rid of them? So the damage done by criminal history records and the critical importance of record clearing. Look, I'm 73 years old. I never had a criminal record. I went to a prestigious law school, not to name what it was, Senator. Uh, and I had criminal law from really good professors. I didn't realize that these things were so out there. The American Bar Association did a study and documented over 40,000 post-punishment punishments nationwide, just because of criminal records. And a lot of people call them collateral consequences. So if you Google it, you'll see collateral consequences. But you're denied entry into all sorts of things: apprenticeships, jobs, promotions, academic programs, workforce development lets you in, but you can't get a job when you're done all their counseling. It stops you from getting public housing. It stops you from getting private housing because the landlords or the sellers look at this stuff and they say, no way, not in my backyard. You can't get mortgages, you can't get small business loans. And a lot of people who have criminal convictions can't get jobs with employers. They have to start their own businesses. They can't get the loans for it. Education, scholarships, custody and guardianships. Think about this. A lot of us have parents that are elderly that need help. And if you have some convictions, you can't be the person to help your parents, or somebody who is disabled, or has been in an accident, or kids of your sisters and brothers. You can't help there. You can't volunteer in the community. I have clients who wanted to coach their kids hockey or soccer. They wanted to go in a bus with their kids on school outings, not going to do it, right? So anybody seeing these things, they call up the record and say, oh my God, you've done drugs, you did whatever. And now we're hearing about arrests and deportation, right? These are for people who've been in our community forever. There's a conviction back when they were 18 and they were smoking marijuana and they got picked up. Now they're 42 and they're getting picked up again. We're not going to go into that. So the importance of record cleaning, everybody agrees. They're calling paper prisons out here in the world in which we work a social determinant of public health by public health people, a major driver of intergenerational poverty by the United Way. There was a study done in 2020 by the Economy League of 10 years of pardons that had been granted in Pennsylvania, 10 years. And they found $16.5 million coming out to communities all across the Commonwealth just by the governor signing his name. That's it. So that's why they called them no cost workforce development and community investment policies. And I put the site down there at the bottom so you can read it. And there are also quotes from leading people like Attorney General Josh Shapiro and other people in the system who appreciate the fact that this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to clear up records so people can get to work and pursue their potentials after a period of time in which they prove they can be trusted. Okay, I'm about ready to start the pathway to pardons in Pennsylvania. Any questions?
Do constituents whose criminal charges were withdrawn still need to pursue an expungement in order to have those charges removed from their criminal record or background report?
They are permanent unless and until erased by a judge. They could be sealed by clean slate if there's no conviction, but they're going to be there for the cops to see, for the DAs to see, and for other people who granted access to see. So if they want them erased, the only way to get rid of them on the record is by going to court. Makes no sense, right? It ought to be erased entirely, not just screened. But, this is Pennsylvania, and this is the way our legislatures decided to do it. Okay, pathway to pardons. The process in Pennsylvania is the same as it's been since 1870. Before 1870s, the governor had the power to pardon, and he was selling them to people and giving them to his friends. We were way ahead of the feds, way ahead of the president on this. But the people rose up and said, no, you don't. You have to go through something called a board of pardons. And in our Constitution, it specifies not only that this is the process before it can get to the governor, but tells you who's on the board. And I'm going to tell you who's on the board in a minute. Until 2019, 2020, there was a really hard system, 9 pages long, 14 pages of instructions that were written in pure bureaucrat that nobody could understand. When Lieutenant Governor Fetterman came in, He spearheaded a revision of it. So now the form is free. You don't have to buy it anymore. It's free to file. There are more filing fees. It's gone from 9 pages to 4 pages. It's available online. And so many court clerks around the state realize the importance of these things for people in their communities, that if the people are low income, they're giving out these records for free. Now, what happens is you're applying online, so you need to get them in PDF anyway. So a lot of court clerks, not all yet, but everywhere we've been so far, they've said, okay, pardon projects can request documents from us, and we'll send the documents to the pardon project. So that really speeds it up. Now, they're asking for certain underlying court records to be attached to the application. There are 5 things that they have to apply. That they have to attach: the affidavit of probable cause, the complaint, the indictment. All right, these are what the cops were saying about the person at the time. You got to know what that says, because that's what the cops were saying. And if the person is saying something totally different, who do you think they're going to believe? The next is whether it was pled or trial to guilty, and the last one is the sentence. They want to know how serious the judge thought this crime was, and that's in the sentence. Okay. They also ask for, has the person paid off their legal financial obligations? And we'll get to that in a minute. But they attach all these things, and we are now emailing it in. You can't, I guess you can mail it in, but you have to use the downloadable form. It's a fillable PDF. It's available in lots of languages. I mean, this was all done this past year because the governor and lieutenant governor said, no, this is a state for second chances. We're going to make this as widely available and easy to apply as possible. Wonderful. All right, so it comes in. It goes to the BOP staff, Board of Pardons staff. It is, and I'm telling you this straight up, the most caring, most wonderful government agency with which I have ever dealt, and I'm 73, so I've dealt with a mess of them. These people really believe in second chances. They believe their mission is to help people get through the system and make sure that if they're going to, if they have a chance, they should have a chance. If you send in your application and it's incomplete or it's wrong, they won't send it back with a 3-page checklist with all the things you did wrong, which is the way it was until 2020. They're going to call you on the phone. They will call the applicant or the representative on the phone and say, can we change this? Or did you mean not to include this? So it's like totally different experience, right? So it comes in, they say it's okay. They file it. It's taking way too long because the backlog is too big, but they give it a C number for clemency. When you first send it in, they give it a BOP application number. And so whether it's earlier in the process or later in the process, you can now email them with updates saying, this just happened to me, or I just won this award, or I just got my promotion, or I just moved, or I just changed my cell phone. All goes in by email now to bopclemency@pa.gov. Incredible. Just amazing, because now it's very easy to do. All right. So they finish it off. They give a C number. They send a letter out. Then they send it over to the Department of Corrections to do an investigation. Now, the investigation goes to the victim, of course. It includes the DA and the judge that did the sentencing, or the court in which the the conviction was entered. Those things every time. Okay. They're going to interview the applicant. Absolutely. It used to be in person, knock on the door, flash the badge, and say, do you mind if we come in? No. Now they send a letter out in advance listing all the questions they want to ask and all the documents they want to see. So it's a very open system. And the Department of Corrections can interview anybody else they want. Your landlord, your ex-wife, your ex-husband, your kids, your employer. It's the government. They can interview whoever they want. But then this corrections auditor prepares a report and sends it into the BOP to the secretary. The secretary then sends it out to the board members. The board members read the application, the things that have been attached, the things they've been able to dig up, and they do look for things like convictions or arrests in other states, driving offenses, protection from abuse matters, juvenile court records, all sorts of things. They have that. And then they get together in what's called a merit review, which is an online, visible webcast meeting where the secretary just reads the name and they vote yes or no. And what they're voting to is whether or not somebody can have the public hearing that our Constitution has required before the Board of Pardons can recommend somebody to the governor for the governor's consideration. 2 votes get you to the public hearing. In the public hearing, they ask questions, any one of them, all 5. The secretary doesn't, but the 5 members of the board do, and then they vote. It's the same day they're voting. They go through the list and they vote. 3 votes out of 5 is all that's necessary. 3 votes. So what we as coaches are doing is trying to make sure that the application that's been sent in by our constituent, by our client, is as full as complete as it can be. Because the only other time that the person is going to be able to tell their story is either to the corrections auditor, and you're going to trust that guy to give your full statement? No, he's going to summarize whatever he or she, picked up and put it in a summary report, or in the hearing before the Board of Pardons, if you get the 2 votes. And that is the most stressful thing in the world for any reasonable person. It used to be held in the Supreme Courtroom in Harrisburg, and that made it really tough on people because they'd have to miss a day's work. They'd have to sometimes stay in a hotel, and it's a scary room. Now it's just on Zoom, all right? They vote for 3. It goes to the governor. The governor doesn't have to do a thing. But under the last governor, it was 98% of the recommendations that came to Governor Wolf, he signed. And he was signing in more than 90 days. Our governor is taking a year for a lot, and I don't know why. But he seems to be signing almost all of them. And then now, as I told you, if he signs it, it's automatically expunged by the court. All I do, the lieutenant governor says, expunge, these guys got an unconditional pardon, and the court takes it from there. So who are these guys on the Board of Pardons? Constitutionally required. You have the lieutenant governor, Austin Davis right now, and you have the attorney general, Dave Sunday. Those people have to be there. Whoever those guys are, whether there's a new lieutenant governor, new AG, they go there. Then 3 people who are appointed by the governor with the consent of the Senate. We have a victim advocate, Marsha Grayson, a corrections expert, Harris Gubernick, and a medical expert. It's no longer John Williams. His 6-year term, second 6-year term, expired in November, and the governor is now in the process of picking that person's replacement. So those are the guys that are your judges. Corrections, victim, mental stuff, political stuff, and crimes, right? So that's the board. And so now we're going to talk about, what do they want to know? Just shout out what you'd want to know, and I'm going to type it up. Go.
Nature of the crime.
All right, what else?
Go to say, what did you learn from it?
Did you take the necessary steps to make sure all of the costs and fines were paid?
How has your life changed?
Did you make restitution?
All right, now restitution is what you paid the victim, right?
Yep.
Okay.
How long did you committed the crime?
Okay. Yeah.
What have you accomplished since committing your last crime?
Okay.
Are
What
you
else?
making your community better or giving back?
Have you taken any classes to better yourself or any type of therapy if needed based on the type of crime?
How is the charge impacting your chance at bettering yourself now? How is it limiting you to move forward?
How consistent have you been in maintaining a job? Just the daily things in life. How consistent have you been?
Okay.
How will this change your life?
Okay. You guys did terrific. This is a 4-minute video. Ready?
Mr. Woodland, if you can unmute yourself, turn your camera on, we'll get started.
How are you?
Good. We're going to jump right in with questions, starting with Mrs. Grayson.
Okay.
Yes, good afternoon. You're not driving, are you? Just in the vehicle?
Yeah, I'm just in the vehicle. I'm helping my son with his prom stuff.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you use Did you use and sell drugs or just sell drugs?
Just sold drugs.
And how long?
Throughout my teenage years, from I think 14 to 18.
Okay. How'd you get involved with that?
Just my neighborhood, just like growing up around it, and just hanging around the wrong people.
I believe I also read that you were in some financial difficulties. Is that correct?
Yes.
You needed some money? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What would you do now differently if you needed money? Let's say you were in bad financial state now. How would you handle that?
Go get a job. I actually own 2 businesses right now, so it's just like I said, I was just accustomed to it because this is my environment. But now I just, I'm a mild citizen. I'll go get a job if I need any type of assistance with anything with money.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Okay.
I have no questions, thank you.
You said you own 2 businesses, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so you're working every day doing
Yes.
what?
I own a sports management company, and I also own a daycare.
Okay. So you've been doing that consistently?
Yes, for probably the last 12 years.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sir, I just have a quick question for you. What is it about a pardon that will change your life? Why are you seeking one?
I mean, my life hasn't been perfect. I made a few mistakes when I was a teenager. I changed my life around, and this is like the only stain on my life right now. And I matured. I grew up. I'm raising my kids. It's just, I mean, just to give me, I feel like it give me a whole new perspective on what I got going forward, and just a new, like I said, it's the only thing that really it's a stain on my life. So I mean, I just think it would be what I got going on for me right now. That would be just a blessing for me to just have this off of my record.
And you've had no police contact since the incident in 2007?
I did. I had came home from parole, and I got locked back up, I think 2009, but it was wrong. It was more so I was driving in my girlfriend's car, and she had some pills from over the counter, and basically it's the tag had faded off, and then once I got into court, they threw it out. It was a mistake.
Okay. Do you do any type of volunteer work, anything in the community at all?
Yes. I coached youth football for about 10 years now.
Okay.
I'm an associate head football coach for high school. I also run a youth camp every year. I've been doing it the last 6 years, for my community. I do a bunch of stuff in my community.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any additional questions for you. So with that, you're free to go.
So how did you guys do predicting the questions? This is not rocket science. We are all interested in the same kind of things. You just have to know where they're coming from. And a person who's applying doesn't know where this board is coming from, has no idea. So now that's the hearing. That's an honest to God hearing. That person got 5 out of 5 votes, and back October, and his nomination, his recommendation is pending before the governor right now. That's the way this works. That's what you're leading up to. It's just taking now 11 years to get there. Don't tell that to the applicants, because what we're trying to do is mobilize legislators, not specifically looking at Senator Kim, but legislatures to cut this period down, for heaven's sakes. This is a good man who applied 5, 6 years ago and can't do the things he wants to support his family. Makes no sense. All right, so now I'm going to show you what the application looks like, and Zach is going to talk about the couple of things in it that are really important for you to know. So we're going to a website. This is, if you type in, PA Board of Pardons, this is what you will see. Okay, Board of Pardons, the first page, right at the top, apply for clemency. Takes you to another page. It says, don't use prior editions. You can apply online. Don't do it because it doesn't have any save feature. And if you screw up, you got to start over. So you want to download the PDF application. Really easy to do. It starts with instructions that are written in plain English. It tells you what documents you need to get from the courthouse. It explains about paying financial obligations. It talks about preparing your personal statement, getting your documents ready before you go. It tells you where you go to get the records, and it makes sure you have the things you need before you submit. And these optional supporting documents, they're optional to the board, but they're not optional in life. Because what they want to make sure is whoever applies isn't just saying, hey, I'm a good guy now. Trust me, really, you can trust me on this. No. What they want is letters from employers, letters from neighbors, letters from your spouse saying you've been a wonderful husband or spouse or whatever. Letters, accommodations you've received, the GED that you went back to school for, your associate's degree, letters of promotion, letters where you've been denied a job because of your past. Those are optional for sure from the Board of Pardons point of view. They are critical from the applicant's point of view because they validate who the person is today. And that's what we are doing as pardon coaches. We are saying, I don't care what you did before. It's not up to me. What are you doing today? And why should that board, you just heard them, why should that board say, okay, you've been doing a great job, you're forgiven? Well, they don't say it, but the governor does, but you get the idea. So now we're looking at the application. Clemency type, here's the different commutations. You check the pardon. Here's the different things down here. Have you previously applied? No, I haven't done that. This is official use. There's your application number when you get in, the C number, and then session is when it comes up for hearing. Applicant information, they fill out all of this stuff in order to find you, a contact. They're not incarcerated, so you don't fill that. You can be the representative if you want to help them and have information be accessible to you later, but they don't need a representative. You can say no. They can be represented by an attorney, family member, friend, nonprofit, or community organization. That is the Pardon Project of Dauphin County if we get it one set up. And then information goes to them and they keep it, okay? And now we're in the heart of it, convictions. It's asked to the offense tracking number, which is what I showed you already, the date of incident, which we actually get off the docket. I can explain that to you later in a follow-up. You put in, you copy and paste from the summary what the convictions were. You don't have to write down what the sentence or whether it was a misdemeanor or a felony or whether it's sealed. They take care of that. And then you get down to this, the case incident description. In your own words, briefly describe the incident and your involvement. Please include where you were, what you did, and how you were caught. Zach, how should people fill this out?
Well, basically, when I'm coaching people, I tell them this first part is just the facts. And that's all they need to put in. You know, it's plain English right there, where they were, what they did, how they were caught. You know, this isn't time for, you know, armchair quarterbacking of like, oh, I should have done this or should have done that in this moment. This is the first chance the applicant will have to plainly take responsibility. If they did commit the crime, like we had mentioned before, this requires a little bit more nuance for some of those other cases, like if they were wrongfully convicted or whatnot. But this is a very important part. And I just want to point out this application as a whole has been massively simplified from Toby, 10 years ago? They were wanting stuff from PennDOT and, you know, everything else, right? This is a wonderful application, wonderfully simplified. So just bear that in mind. The next section after that, which
All right, wait one second. Wait one second. I want to scroll down. This is where they then fill in the county, the plea date, the final sentence, revocation date, sentence date, docket date, the debt's been satisfied, the balance owing. So they're doing all that investigation at the time before they accept and file it. When it comes in, that's what the staff is doing. There's a second one. What are you going to? Same questions, same essay. There's a third one. Same thing. You know, the crimes and how you were caught. Okay. Now, and there's something on the bottom that says, check this box if you're including a supplemental page. No. This is just the facts. As Sergeant Joe Friday used to say, I'll drag that. I know you're too young for that program, but just the facts, right? Because there's going to be this other section, personal statement. Zach, take it away.
Now, this is a really this is their only chance really to paint a picture for the board. This is the only time the applicant is going to directly communicate their story to the board before, going to their hearing. This is the only time. So no pressure. And now it's important lengthwise. They give you, how many pages did they give you now, Toby? 2, it looks
2
like.
right there. Yep.
Okay, now it's important when you're filling this out, don't use smaller than like 10 size font, right? Don't make it micro print. And it needs to be about this, about this length. Don't make it 4, 5, 6 pages long. You're going to have to condense it down, even though there's not an official limit. But, Toby and I will both scream until our red faces are red. Keep it a little shorter. I know that it's critical. They want to get everything in there that they've accomplished, but, you don't want to overwhelm the board with too much to read, right? But this is very critical. And this is a chance for them to explain, the context and everything, why it happened, how it happened, what they did afterwards. Like, you got to get them focused on when people fill this out, they feel like they're going back to court, like they're going to get convicted again, or things like that. And some people that helps them write, others this isn't it. You've already been convicted. The worst they can say is no. So try and keep people from stressing out that way. But it is important for them to lay out the facts, bring the evidence of, hey, I've served my community for 10 years with the Pee Wee baseball league, and here's this, and this, that, and the other thing. Get them talking about after post conviction, right? What they did to improve. That shows, that always shows what they've done different than others in similar situations who have chosen, a more poorer path, so to speak.
This is so important, not just for the Board of Pardons, for the person with whom you are working. They have spent years, maybe decades, keeping their head down, not wanting anyone to know they have a conviction. Here they're trying to get rid of the conviction. At this one, when I start with interviewing a client, I don't start on page 1. That's where bureaucrats start. I start with, okay, what brings you to me today? What's going on in your life that you need a pardon? Really? You were denied this job? How come you were denied this job? You were denied this promotion? Really? How are you doing at work? You're doing great? Great. Do you think your employer would give you a letter of recommendation? Perfect. What have you done since you got off parole? You got your GED, you got your associate's degree, you got your full bachelor, you got your master's degree. These are incredible. You're doing terrific. Can you get copies of those? What are you trying to do in the community? Do you have any pictures of yourself out there volunteering? A letter of thanks. If you haven't started, you might think about going to your local church, mosque, or synagogue and start volunteering through them, because they always have good things to do. And then they could write a letter, not right now, but a year from now or 2 years from now, and send it in saying, yeah, this guy's a parishioner. This guy's been terrific. She really, really deserves, she's earned it. She's earned it. So in this one, it's their story. Now, we're probably better writers than most of the people coming to you. You can type this up. You can type it up on a Word document, save it, send it back to them, make sure it's accurate, keep it in their words. If they feel good enough, they can write it, encourage them to write it. And when they send it to you, don't change the punctuation and the spelling. It's their voice that the board has to hear through this document. Because if it's written by a lawyer or cleaned up, and it's not the way the person sounds, when it goes to the parole officer, and especially when it goes to the Board of Pardons, they're going to be looking at this and this person, and they're not the same person. And you'd be amazed. Well, maybe you wouldn't. A lot of people get up before the Board of Pardons. The Board of Pardons asks them about something in the application that they put in 3 years ago, and the guy says, I didn't write that, because the lawyer did. So this is their voice, and they should leave your office proud of what they've accomplished. You are rebuilding their definition of themselves. You are sending them out with pats on the back, with a plan to go forward, encouragement to keep doing, staying on the straight and narrow, sharing their stories wherever they can. Ask them to show up at a clinic and talk about, how they've turned and why this is so easy to do. Because at the end of this, after the end of 2 blank pages, you are done. That's it. You have to write about the crime and write about who you are and how you came to be where you are and how you're never going to go back there again. That's it. You can do this with them. They can do it themselves. They sign it and submit it. And, all this stuff is basically lawyer language that says, tell the truth. Because if you don't tell the truth, you're an idiot. Because they're going to find out and they're going to deny you. And yeah, you can apply in a year. People denied can apply in a year, but then you're coming back as a lying loser. So don't do that. Be honest. Be totally transparent. Admit everything you've done. As Zach said, they can't come after you anymore for more drug sales that you did or doing other bad stuff. Talk about your good stuff. And then down here, finalizing, attaching the documents, attaching letters of support, certificates and diplomas, and emailing it in. Emailing it in right there. And you're done. Okay? And then they have what happens after you apply. So that's the whole story. And there isn't a person on this call for whom that's too difficult. Not one. So if you really want to help somebody, what you're doing is saying, hey, I know the system. I know who the judges are. Let's talk about what you've done and who you've done it with and all that kind of good stuff. And, at the end of the process is your ability to just, be freed of this whole thing. And just so you know what it looks like, here are some pictures of some folks who got their pardons. That's one. Another. They're just regular people. They're not rich people who have rich lawyers. They're not all white privileged from the suburbs with, all sorts of degrees and pull and access. They haven't contributed to Josh Shapiro's re-election campaign. These are real people. And so that is what's going on with pardons. And what I'd like to do now is open it up for whatever comments Zach has received, or if there's time to actually hear from some folks. So what's your interest? What would you like to know?
So before, Keisha, I know you have your hands up. We are going to, thank you, Toby. Thank you, Zach/Josh. This was tremendous, so helpful. I want to introduce a very special guest. After she speaks, we're going to end our recording and then we'll have our Q&A. Toby is kind enough. So he said he will, and Zach will stay for another 30 minutes, but that will not be part of the recording session. Okay. Right now, I would like to introduce a newly sworn in Clerk of Courts of Dauphin County, Tina Nixon, who we all know is going to be an instrumental part in this process. She is a supporter. I'm a big fan of hers. Ms. Nixon, hello and good morning. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator. It's an honor to be here, and this is perfect timing because I was at the counter yesterday when someone brought in their pardon paperwork for us to gather the information for them to file. The one thing I will say when coming to the Dauphin County Court is that you must pay for parking unless you get dropped off. So a lot of folks come in and think they can run in and hand us the paperwork and run back out. Normally, depending on the week, if it's, a court week, it may take up to 24 hours to an entire week for us to gather the information for the pardon. So make sure you're communicating that with the individuals, that we will call them once we have all the documents they are requesting ready for them to pick up. So that is a smooth process. And because we are part of the Pardon Project, there's no fee for individuals that come in with the paperwork, requesting that paperwork. So I am drinking from a fire hose. This is my second week in, and this is great. And I will share this with the clerks who work on the pardons. Once you get the recording, I want to share it with them so they understand the importance of the work that they do and how this impacts and changes individuals' lives. So thank you for your warm welcome and introduction. And thank you for this crucial information for our residents of Dauphin County.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. Well, that concludes our session today. Please share this widely. We'd like to see more pardon coaches in Dauphin County and beyond. Let's change lives. Let's support folks and see some second chances happening. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.